Alrighty, here we go. Test review. Let's try that again. Test review, Unit 10. We are now ready to get ready for this next test that you will be taking tomorrow. Hopefully you will understand everything I go through, and hopefully you are listening. Anyways, let's look at the first couple of problems. Okay, so the first problems, again, remember, are talking about factoring and solving by factoring. Now, if you need more help on that, or you need the little bits of the what form, what term, stuff like that, go back to the previous notes, which are on Unit 10, Solving and Factoring Basic Polynomials. It should be the one right above this one. Anyways, so let's look at this. On problem number 1, we've got this x cubed plus 512, and then we've got another one that was x cubed minus 64. What is the biggest difference between these two is that one's going to be equal to 0 and the other one isn't. The one that isn't equal to 0 is very simple. All you got to do is go, okay, I got plus plus, I got plus plus. I'm sorry. You got a plus, and then I've got a plus, and then a minus plus. I get confused. Now I'm trying to think of other ones. All right. Cube root of x is just x. Cube root of 512 is 8. Now, again, there is a chart that you can get from the previous notes that would tell you, like, 1 cubed is 1, 2 cubed is 8, 3 cubed is 27, 4 cubed is 64, and so on and so forth. So 8 cubed is 512. In other words, the cube root of 512 is 8. So now what do I put? I'm going to go, okay, I've got x squared. I've got 8 squared, which is 64, and that will be on the end. And then I've got in the middle 8 times x, which is 8x. So again, I'm saying, like, take this one, square it. Take this one, square it. And then in the middle, put them together, and that's what you got in the middle. Okay? So that's all you got to do for that, and that one gets pretty simple. Now, it's factoring, so all you had to do was just that, and you're done. On the solving, well, I'm going to go through some stuff about the solving, but I'm going to come up with a shortcut. Now, minus means I'm going to put minus plus plus. Again, cube root of x cubed is x. Cube root of 64 is 4. And then you have x squared plus 4x plus 16. Okay, because again, it's square, square, in the middle, put them together. Okay, so the first one is easy to solve. X minus 4 equals 0. I could easily just say is x equals 4. Just by, the opposite of a minus. What we have now come to discover is there is a shortcut. Wrong thing. There is a shortcut for this. You're supposed to go through the whole quadratic formula, but what we have discovered is the answer ends up being plus or minus, take this number, change the sign, negative 4, and then you could put 4i square root of 3 over 2. And I mean, there's a little bit more I could simplify that to, but that pretty much, it's always going to have that I square root of 3, and it always takes this number and puts it right there in front of them. So beyond that, I mean, you can see the work here, and I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it. You can see the work there and see how I was going through it. And then over here, again, some more work as I finished it out to get that. And I've gone over that in class, so hopefully y'all should hopefully understand that. But again, there is a shortcut to that, so utilize it. All right, number 2 and number 5. These are quadratic form. These are 3-term quadratic forms, which means then I got to worry about the whole plus, plus, minus, minus, that type of thing. So minus, minus is a minus plus. Split the x to the 4th and make that x squared. I've got two numbers that multiply to give me 60 and would subtract to give me 11. Now, the way I get those numbers is just by simple dividing. Like I go 60 divided by 1 is 60. 60 divided by 2 is 30. And I'm waiting to see if any of those subtract to give me 11. 60 divided by 3 is 20. And then finally 60 divided by 4 is 15. I mean, there are more factors that would multiply to give me that, but it's not there. So all I got to do is now I've got my answer already, because 15 minus 4 is 11. So again, bigger number in the small one, and I mean in the left one, and smaller number in the right one. Now, again, because this is x squared plus, there's nothing else I can do with that. But, and I'll throw this out here. Like, what if that had been, say, x squared minus 16? If that had been x squared minus 16, then there's a square root for 16, which means then I would split this up and say x plus 4 x minus 4. Now I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm just saying that could have happened if it had been minus 16. But since this is minus 15 and I can't take the square root of that, I just leave that alone. But what happens when it's equal to 0? Well, you don't leave it alone. You keep going. So here I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 40 and add up to 13, which would be 8 and 5. Now, because that's the case, I can actually take the square root of 8 and the square root of 5. Like I'm going to have to. Like I'm going to say x squared minus 8 equals 0 and x squared minus 5 equals 0 and move them over. Now I got to take the square roots and I've got to make sure I say plus and minus square root of 8 plus and minus square root of 5. You can simplify the square root of 8 to be 2 square root of 2, but I'm okay with y'all leaving it like that. We'll get back to simplifying rationals later. Alright, anyways. Next one. Alright, all we got to do here is factor by grouping. And factor by grouping, what we do is we pair the first two together, and we pair the last two together. That's why they're grouping, because you're grouping them. Okay, what can I take out of the first one? I can take out an x squared, and that would leave me with an x plus 7. And that's me explaining why I took out the x squared, because there was 3 in one and 2 in the other, so I can take out 2. Okay, and that leaves me again with the x plus 7. Again, in grouping, the parentheses repeat. So x plus 7 again. And then, how do I get that number in the middle? Well, what's 35 divided by 7? It's 5. So then I can say, okay, put the repeater, x plus 7, and x squared plus 5 together. And those, again, are your answers, and that's it. There you go, done. When it's equal to, you got to do a little bit more work. You can see I'm going to go through the same steps. Be careful with the signs. Notice that negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. Now, once I get them like here to the factored, I need to set them equal to 0, and I need to solve. So I'm going to move that one over and say x equals 4. Move the negative 3 or 3 over to become negative 3, and then take the square root. Keep in mind that every time you take the square root, you should, and there's a negative, you got to give me an I. Okay, so this one is I plus or minus I squared root of 3. And that's really about it. It's fairly simple. Kind of go from there. Okay, the next ones I think are fairly easy. I don't think they're really that difficult. Just make sure you're paying attention to which ones are combining. So, like on the first one, I'm going to say add f and g. So I'm saying 3x plus 1 plus x plus 5. 3x plus x is 4x. 1 plus 5 is 6. The next one I'm subtracting. Be careful when you subtract. Notice that I'm going to subtract by changing the signs as I move them under. Because the definition of subtraction is add the opposite. And then on number 9, that's going to be my multiply symbol. I don't care what method you use to multiply. You can do box method, which I'm going to do, or it's going to erase in a minute, and then I'm going to do distribution method. Or I could have done my personal favorite, which is vertical method. If you need to re-see any of those, then I would suggest, slow it down and come back and rewind it. But basically, these are things that should be fairly simple and should be easy to see. It's just that I'm showing it to you in a different way, asking you to, say, put them together. Notice that distribution method and box method, and even technically vertical method, would have gotten you the same answer. Alright, so let's look at number 10 now. Number 10 is where I say all you had to do is divide. So just make sure you get the right one that's on top and the right one that needs to be on the bottom, and there you go. 11 and 12 are very simple, or very similar. 11 is, the way it's written is that g is going to go into f. So I'm going to say here, instead of writing 3x plus 1, 3 parentheses plus 1, and then I'm going to put the g function, which is x plus 5, in there, and then distribute and say combine. And that would give me 3x plus 16. And then on 12 is basically the same thing, but I'm going to change it up to be 2 parentheses plus 3, and in that parentheses I'm going to put the j, which is 6x minus 2, and again distribute, and then combine your like terms, which in this case would be negative 4 and 3, which would give me negative 1. And that's all you got to do on those. The next ones, you're supposed to decide if they're inverses. How do you decide that? Well, if you put like the k into the g and the g into the k, they should give you an answer of just x. So keep that in mind. They should just give you an answer of x. So you can see here, I'm going to put k into g, which would be the x minus 5 plus 5, and the minus and plus 5s cancel each other out. Doing the same thing with the g into the k, and the minus 5 and plus 5 cancel each other out again. So yes, this is an inverse. But if you look at 14, and I'll let 14 play through, 14, all I had to do would have been, as soon as I start putting j into f, I can already tell that it's not going to cancel out and leave me just an x. Nothing's canceling out. So I would just stop right there and say, nope, doesn't work, and that means the answer is no. Whoa, stop there, right there. Okay, there you go. And then on 15, I want you to actually find the inverse, which means get rid of the h of x and change it to a y, switch the x and the y, and then go ahead and switch the x and the y, and then solve for the y. That means subtract 3 and divide by 2 in this case, and then leave it like that, and you're done. So the inverse is x minus 3 over 2. As far as number 16 goes, all you got to do is remember, I have no clue what that is that just popped up. Let's get rid of that. So for number 16, excuse me, for number 16, you remember, switch the x and the y, and that basically becomes your answer. That's all you're doing. When they ask you for the inverse and they give you a bunch of points, just switch the x's and the y's and you're done. Anyways, that's it for today. If y'all do have any questions, hopefully maybe you can catch me before school starts tomorrow or whatever. But hey, good luck. Hopefully y'all are ready. I believe I already gave y'all a magic word for me that y'all should have given to me a while back in notes. So we're done here. Y'all take care. Y'all be good. Thank you.